Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. In today's video, I'm going to use a picture book to explain a complicated psychological concept. Many of you have been asking me to explain these concepts, and I feel like picture books are the best way. So have you ever heard of the concept of mentalization and wondered what that means? Maybe your therapist talks about difficulties with mentalization that you might have that interfere with your attachment with your kids. And you're like, what's mentalization? And then you Google it and it kind of sounds complicated. So here's a really easy way to understand mentalization. But first, if this content speaks to you, if this is the kind of post-traumatic parenting information that you need for your journey, welcome. Please hit subscribe below so you never miss another episode. Please like, save, and share this video. Let your friends know about post-traumatic parenting. We are a grassroots movement of post-traumatic parents who are changing the world one parenting decision at a time. So if you want to ask me questions about these topics, check out our Instagram at Dr. Koslowitz Psychology, where the post-traumatic parents hang out. So mentalization is a very complicated psychological concept. Mentalization refers to creating a mental representation of a person or a relationship so that the person in the real world becomes a mental representation inside our head. And that mental representation, especially when we're talking about attachment figures, becomes a psychological function. So my mother soothing me becomes my thinking about my mother soothing me, becomes my memories of my mother soothing me, becomes my capacity to self-soothe. So as my actual mother enters my brain through a mental representation, she has become mentalized. And now I have a mentalization of my relationship with her. And now that relationship with her directly contributes to my understanding of self-soothing. So what starts out as a physical person becomes a mental representation, becomes a capacity. We want our children to sort of download us as a program, right? So that when a child fails at something, we want them to hear our voice in the back of their head saying, that's okay, you're going to do better next time. You learned something from the experience. Next time you're going to set up your shot a little better. It's fine to fail as long as you fail well. We want them to be hearing our voice, because that app of resiliency that's operating in the back of their brain, that's us. That's our soothing and our reassurance and our talking to them and our talking them through a problem becoming a psychological capacity for them. Let's think of this lovely book, Paper Dolls by Julia Donaldson, which seems to be about something entirely else, but is really about mentalization. There was once a girl who had tiger slippers and a ceiling with stars on it and a butterfly hair slide, which she kept losing, and 2 goldfish, and a nice mother who helped her make some paper dolls. They were Ticky and Tacky and Jackie the Becky and Jim with 2 noses and Joe with the bow. And they danced and they jumped and they sang and they met a dinosaur who clawed and roared and said, I'm coming to get you. But the paper dolls sang, you can't get us. Oh, no, no, no. We're holding hands and we won't let go. We're Ticky and Tacky and Jackie the Becky and Jim with 2 noses and Joe with the bow. And they jumped to a bus. And we have a lot of scenes of the little girl really enjoying her time, entering what we might call that transitional space of imagination, where she and her dolls are just having so much fun together. And it's joyful and adorable, and they're having a great time. And then, unfortunately, But along came a boy with a pair of scissors and he said, I'll snip you. And he did. He snipped them into tiny little pieces. And he said, you're gone forever. And I think for those of us little sisters in the world who have ever experienced that feeling of being bullied by an older sibling, or for those of us who have ever experienced that sensation of something I truly value is being taken away from me, Julia Donaldson does a great job of just capturing what that experience is like. But here's the mentalization. But the paper doll saying, we're not gone. Oh, no, no, no. We're holding hands and we won't let go. We're Ticky and Tacky and Jackie the Backy and Jim with two noses and Joe with a bow. And the pieces all joined together and the paper dolls flew into the little girl's memory, where they found white mice and fireworks and a starfish soap and a kind granny and the butterfly hair slide and more lovely things each day and each year. So you see how an actual item, the paper dolls, and perhaps the experience of making paper dolls with mom, and all the joy that the little girl had playing with the paper dolls and the fun she had and the imaginary adventures they went on, those aren't lost. Those became mentalized, and now they're a memory in the little girl's head. And not only are they a memory, but they become something else also. They become a capacity, which again, mentalization is when a memory, a person, a mental representation becomes a capacity. And the girl grew into a mother who helped her own little girl make some paper dolls. So you see how this experience of nurturance with from her mother, which became paper dolls, and then became a memory, and then became a mental representation, now became the capacity to be the same kind of nurturing mother. They were Pappy and Pinky and Blinky the Blinky and Fred with one eyebrow and Flo with a bow. And they jumped and they danced and they sang. And I want to say they jumped and they danced and they sang into the little girl's memory. And one day, this little girl will grow up and she will make paper dolls with her children, right? And the idea is what starts out as an experience becomes a memory, becomes a mental representation, becomes a capacity. We want to think very hard about that because we are instilling capacities in our kids right now. And what voice do we want to install? Do we want them to, as soon as they fail, hear, I'm a loser because we said, oh my gosh, you messed that up. You're such a loser. I told you to pay more attention. I told you to focus more. I told you to set up your shot better. You're a loser. If you don't listen to me, you're never going to get anywhere in life. Then that's the app that's going to play in the background of their head. And the minute they fail, they're going to hear, well, of course I failed. I'm a loser. Because mentalization isn't only a good thing. Mentalization can be a bad thing. And I think for those of us in therapy, when a therapist says you're having difficulties with attachment because of mentalization, when people say that borderline personality disorder has to do with mentalization, what they're talking about is the psychological capacities perhaps to understand a person as a whole person, not as split into parts. The psychological capacity to understand that when someone says no or doesn't want to spend time with us, that doesn't mean they hate us. It just means right now they're saying no. And those capacities are very often not installed because of childhood experiences. So if we had a childhood experience of constant invalidation or shame or criticism or blame, it's hard to have the capacity to not be hard on ourselves, to not be a perfectionist, the capacity to be resilient, the capacity to not take rejection personally. There's a lot of psychological capacities that actually come from parenting. But for us as post-traumatic parents, what we want to focus on is what capacity are we instilling? It's not so much those picture perfect memories, about taking your kids to the pumpkin patch or the apple orchard because it's fall and you want to take those gorgeous Instagram worthy pictures. Those aren't the memories. It's those constant memories, the repeated patterns of every day when I come home from school, my mom really wants to hear about my day. Every day when I mess up, my mom says, that's okay. We're going to learn from our mistake. And that ongoing pattern, I know for me, a capacity instilled in me to try again despite adversity was the faith that my mother had in me, and how often she said to me, like, you can do it, it's okay. When things didn't go my way, when kids bullied me, she very much had that's their loss. They will come to appreciate you later, right? That sensation, because she was instilling a certain voice inside my head. There were other voices instilled in my head, losing my father at a young age, living with a parent with chronic illness, that definitely instilled its own voices and its own capacities that unfortunately are not healthy capacities that I have to work on. I think one mentalization that I have is my ability to dissociate and check out. It's not conducive to present parenting. I learned to dissociate due to trauma, right? So that became a capacity. And I sort of started having the mentalization of my quiet place that I went to, my fantasy world where I could go, where no stress could touch me. That wasn't a good thing. It was a capacity born of trauma. It wasn't a good capacity. So mentalization can work both ways. We want to think about mentalization in terms of those memories, right? Those paper dolls that fly into the little girl's brain that create the capacity for love and nurturance that the little girl then has. And then she makes her own paper dolls with her daughter so that her daughter has those capacities, because what starts out as an experience becomes a memory, becomes a mental representation, becomes a psychological capacity. The more we think about that process, the more we pay a lot of attention to the words we use with our kids, the patterns of interaction we have with them, especially if we tend to use a critical term or we tease and that teasing hits home a little much. We have to remember a memory becomes a capacity. The capacity we want to instill are the good capacities, the adaptive capacities, the capacities that will one day make them into healthy parents of their children. So if you've been confused about the concept of mentalization, I hope this video cleared it up. If you have another psychological concept that, maybe a therapist mentioned to you and you're curious about it, you're confused about it, you'd like me to shoot a video to clear it up, please comment it below. You can also, if you wish that this video was more of a talk show so that you could come on and ask a question, we do that on Instagram. You can find the post-traumatic parenting community at Dr. Kozolitz Psychology. If you want much longer form content with like deep dives into topics, check out the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want blog posts about parenting and how our trauma impacts our parenting, check out Targeted Parenting on the Psychology Today app or Psychology Today website. Thanks for the gift of your attention. Till next time.